Hey guys, Furum here. Another week of Asphalt 9 qualifiers has come and gone, and I'm here today to break it all down for you. I will be your co-host in the ESL Mobile Open Asphalt 9 Finals in the North American Division for Spring 2021. If you would like to get involved and be featured in a recap video, go to the daily events, play the qualifier, and put your best time forward. This season, the car of choice is the Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport, a quite agile car sitting at the top of Class C. Last week, we saw Coco DU and Middle dominating on Scotland, and this week we have gone halfway across the world to Nevada. The most recent track added to Asphalt 9, Nevada is long and winding with plenty of hairpin curves, but also some long straights where you can pick up some great speed. So let's now take a deeper dive into this variant of the Nevada track called Long Run. You begin this variant facing a sharp turn to the right. The fastest way to do this in almost every car is to drift enough to save up for a full shockwave and then use it right away after the turn. About the time when racers pass by the green truck on the right, they will break their shockwave and go into single nitro as the car will then be up to its maximum speed. Going by the truck also gives them a near miss, which gives them even more nitro. Then you have a choice whether to barrel roll off the left or the right ramp. Technically, the left ramp should be a slightly shorter racing line and should be better, but the right one will not probably lose you more than a couple of frames. Getting 2 barrels is best so that you have a full bar of nitro when you land, so that you're able to perfect nitro around the next turn and keep all of your speed through there. You can take this turn sharply and only pick up the yellow nitro, and if you have not touched the walls so far, you will get a perfect run directly before this ramp, allowing you to shockwave straight up it. One trick that you can use to keep your airspeed high for a bit longer after the jump is to bounce on the side of the bridge over here, and then you want to take both of the next jumps. Asphalt 9 is all about airspeed and momentum, and the more that you can be in the air, generally the faster your lap time will be. Next up is the tunnel. Now over to the right, when coming into the tunnel, there is a little bump that you can go up on and possibly fly into the air and gain some airspeed. Now this is a bit wider. You can also stay to the left and take a slightly shorter line as well. Then the fastest way is to take the yellow nitro and go into the intersection of the tunnel, and then, because the rest of it's barricaded off, you're forced to go into this tube section. Remember what I was saying earlier about wanting to stay in the air as much as you can? Well, one way you can do this is by staying on the inside, and the turn in the tube is just sharp enough so that your car will fly off if you go high enough to gain you some speed in the tunnel, but it's not so sharp that you wreck on the other side of the tube when landing, and you can even do this a couple of times. Then, as players will be getting low on nitro at this point, it's best to 360 out of the tunnel so that upon landing they'll have a full bar to get through the next section, which is pretty straight and without much nitro. Now we're coming up to the really curvy section of the track. Now it is best if you have enough nitro to shockwave after each of the turns, but if not, you can just use either double tap nitro or the perfect nitro. But after the last one, the hairpin turn, you do want to have enough for a shockwave so you can go off this barrel roll with it. Then you can take a shorter route by jumping down onto the lower section of this dam here, and then you have a choice at the ramp at the bottom. If you flat spin up it, you'll be able to shockwave at the next barrel, but if you don't flat spin, you'll save some time here, but lose a little bit later. Both ways of driving this part end up relatively similarly. The main thing to keep in mind is that you want to have enough nitro to go up this last ramp with a shockwave straight on without having to 360 and lose time. So we've gone over the track and its tricks. Let's now take a look at the top run on Android, driven by none other than RPM Justin. He picks up the nitro bottle and drifts around the first turn just enough to be able to shockwave up to his top speed, then goes into single nitro so as not to use his nitro all up before the big jump. Gets a couple of barrels, then uses perfect nitro to make it around this turn without losing much speed at all. He picks up the yellow nitro bottle, gets a perfect run at the perfect time to be able to shockwave up that ramp, again taking all of the ramps that he can to gain the most momentum and airspeed that he can. He attempts to jump off the bump to the right into the tunnel. Unfortunately, he does not gain much speed from it, but he gets a good entry into this part of the tunnel, hugging the inside so that he's able to fly off the side to gain some airspeed. He then 360s out of the tunnel so that he has enough nitro upon landing to come up to the next turn. He uses the brake nitro trick to conserve his nitro some, and then has no problem navigating the hairpin turns as he drifts around and then shockwaves and then drifts and then shockwaves, as this is the fastest way to get through this section. He does not drift on the final turn, but instead shockwaves early to gain gain the most speed coming off that ramp, jumps down into the lower section, does a 360 off that ramp there so that he's able to shockwave off the barrel as high as he can to gain the most speed that he can, then shockwaves off the final ramp into the finish line for a final time of 1:22.440. A very clean lap for sure, but let's see how it compares to the run from the winner of iOS, Yog Saran. He goes into the drift in the first turn as we've seen the rest of the contestants do, and then shockwaves up to his top speed, but then takes a slightly shorter route than Justin by going on the left barrel, only getting one barrel, but jumping off the ledge at the bottom to still gain some more airspeed. He then perfect nitros around this turn, just like Justin, saves up for the shockwave, but then bounces off the railing a little bit to keep some of that airspeed just a little bit longer. It seems that Yog Saran is all about the shorter racing lines, as he does not attempt to go for the hump at the beginning of the tunnel. He doesn't get quite as good of entry into this section as Justin did, not getting as much airspeed, but he's able to land earlier and then 360 and get more airspeed toward the end of the tunnel instead. 360 is a ton in the air to completely fill up his nitro, coming into the hairpin turns, where after the first curve he doesn't shockwave, instead just saving it for the second turn, and then again taking the final turn here without hitting the sides because this car just drifts quite well. He flies off onto the dam with his lime green Cayman, which goes quite well with the colors of the season, wouldn't you say? Now he didn't 360 off the ramp on the dam, so he doesn't get a shockwave to go up that barrel, but he does get one to go off the final ramp coming into the finish line for a final time of 22.294, just barely ahead of RPM Justin's time. Since these players drove such similar laps and yet at certain parts did quite different things, let's take a look at both of them side by side to see if we can spot any maybe smaller differences. I already see one. Justin takes the first turn a little bit sharper, which is probably why he doesn't have to drift quite as long to get to his shockwave. They both go for a near miss on this truck just to give them as much nitro as they can coming up to the next section, where we see our first real split as Yog Saran goes low and does keep a higher speed toward the beginning of this jump, but Justin is able to keep a higher speed for longer, and so those both slightly different routes basically cancel each other out, and Yog Saran is maybe just milliseconds, maybe frames ahead of Justin as they approach the jump over the canyon, and here we will see a difference again. Justin goes slightly further to the left, where Yog Saran stays to the right and bounces off the bridge. You could see that his speed stayed above 400 for just that littlest bit longer, which may not seem like much, but it allows him to get to this yellow nitro ahead of Justin. When you have such skilled players as these, any little difference can definitely count. The reason why Justin didn't get much of a speed boost on that little bump is because he hit the wall a little bit too early, which caused his car to go back down and not fly up into the air much, if at all. Coming into the tube section, we can see that Justin hugs the wall just a little bit closer, which allows him to go higher flying off. But since Yog Saran didn't go as high, that enabled him to land closer to the wall and have enough room to go off of it again to gain more speed before exiting the tunnel. Yog Saran lands with a little bit more nitro than Justin, but this did not really come into play as both of them are using the brake nitro trick to conserve their nitro, and since there are turns coming up which you have to drift around, they'll be able to fill up for shockwave without any problem at all. Now here, Justin gains a little bit of ground on Yog Saran as he shockwaves before the second turn, allowing him to keep a little bit of a higher speed through that section. As we can see now, they are pretty much tied going around this hairpin turn. Justin cutting it closer, but hitting the wall just slightly, causing him to lose a little bit of speed, but both of them are at pretty much the same level coming into this barrel here, with Yog Saran just milliseconds ahead. He gains just a little bit more of time because he does not choose to 360 off this ramp, whereas Justin does, but this is balanced out somewhat because Justin can now shockwave up this ramp and go higher for pretty much the same speed, allowing him to keep that speed for longer. Now it's a beeline down the final stretch to the finish, with Yog Saran going off this ramp with shockwave just slightly ahead of Justin, and he gains in total about a 1/6 of a second throughout the duration of the track. track. And there you have it, our winners of the second week of iOS and Android qualifiers, both of whom played extremely well. So to wrap things up for this week, we've seen that Nevada is a very versatile track. These players have driven in all different colors of cars and taken different approaches to many little sections of the track, where overall the route was largely the same, but the small optimizations and tricks along the way could be quite diverse. So this has been your recap for the ESL Mobile Open Asphalt 9 qualifiers in week 2. You still have the opportunity to throw your own name in the bucket as the qualifiers are still happening now in Asphalt 9, so definitely go check it out and you might just get casted by me in a future recap. Good luck to everyone, especially the winners as they continue on their journey, and be sure to join me on May 16th for the Asphalt 9 finals with Enverum, and thank you for watching. Please like the video if you've enjoyed and consider subscribing for more Asphalt and other games content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!